understandable, like, states have to prioritize the immediate quality of life. It's understandable that climate change is high up on the agenda, but it's moot if people don't have their basic necessities. Why would people care if the world is getting warmer if you cannot provide food on the table for your family? You will still keep doing your environmentally harmful practices if that means you are fed. So therefore, we need to solve the feeding issue. We need to solve the provision issue before we solve the climate change issue. Climate change cannot be divorced from other matters simply because people on the ground are most affected because of the lack of resources. You cannot stop a strong typhoon that is going to destroy your house, but what you can actually do is build a better house that can withstand the typhoon. Next is that the change needed done drastically will greatly affect these people's quality of life, and therefore they will be less likely to opt in. To solve climate change, solutions can be done, for example, to remove the use of sachets and one-time use plastics and opt for buying in bulk. Instead of buying one small sachet of shampoo for a day's shower, there will be funding towards removing these. The people who can barely afford food cannot wait there and save their money to buy 1 liter of shampoo just because it's more environmentally friendly. The removal of old cars is not really going to help the family whose old car is their only way to get their kids to school. Those who suffer the most from climate change, for example, the temperature getting warmer and stronger natural disasters, are those who do not have the resources to even think about what their actions are doing for the planet, because all they're thinking of is survival. Therefore, they will be the ones who will be most harmed, as they do not have the resources to bridge the gap to help solve the planet. Wrongly accused people without due process, people who have, and there are people who have been executed for crimes they didn't commit. Individuals were taken even if they were innocent because they were framed, because the justice system was inherently against them because of who they are. Look at medieval times where justice was reliant on the strong biases of the authorities. If the king wants to cut off your head, then you're dead. Why is this going to be effective? Okay, we just want to talk about, like, why do we have repeat drug offenders in the first place? Released drug offenders already face a big stigma being an ex-convict, and add on to that, they already have a hard time getting opportunities because of their background. A majority of these people have no alternatives for a job. That's why they get into drugs. Additionally, those who peddle drugs aren't those who can just take it casually. They are the ones who need a source of income, and those who have no alternatives. So if you have a rehabilitative justice system, what does this do? In this model, people are able to get clean from their time spent in prison, but also have the ability to find more meaningful work afterward. That means it's less likely for them to move on with their life, to go back to their drug offending ways because they cannot afford food. Basically, we concede that there are benefits to using marijuana, but there are things that already have the same benefits and that are a lot safer and a lot more documented and a lot more noticeable when it's really then it's really useless and reckless. First of all, antidepressants. The treatment plans for antidepressants are highly customizable simply because pharmaceutical companies and doctors have a plethora of inhibitors to choose from. Weed exists in an almost arbitrary nature due to the multiple forms it takes, which makes it difficult to regulate. Antidepressants also have years and years of research and successful peer reviews with minimal side effects. When it comes to weed, there is also research, but it tells us that there's an increased risk due to schizophrenia regardless of its relaxant properties. There's already a natural deterrence to taking antidepressants because you have some side effects and unwanted behaviors, but these are usually physical and not really detrimental to the person. You can work with your doctor to mitigate these things, and these serve as a natural deterrence for you to against abusing these. Next is that you obviously have therapy. These behaviors focus on reintegrating you back into society and making you more productive. The euphoria that comes from weed is isolationist because you want to be able to enjoy the euphoria that you're feeling without the world around you tainting that experience, without the world around you triggering anything that may be triggered from you. And that's why we think that this is not an effective solution, because there is going to be this withdrawal and it's going to be counterproductive. Moving on, that's why it causes more harms than benefits. It opens the doors for irresponsible consumption. The high given by weed creates dopamine in the brain. Even if Gov can say that this can be solved by some custom species or something, or like medical perspectives, it gives that euphoric effect. The active chemical in marijuana kicks up the production of dopamine, which should sound great for those with depression because they lack it, but the overproduction of it and not the natural production of it brings you to a low and fatigue. The overproduction overstimulates your brain receptors and slowly makes your brain numb to the effects of it. You are now forced to keep taking and taking it because you do not feel the kick of it anymore, and with the effects and the cyclical nature of a mental illness, that's going to make you more likely to do it, as opposed to antidepressants, which are medically dosed so that the amount of dopamine you get is the normal amount of person for someone your size, etc. The legalization of marijuana is also going to open doors for those who are not prescribed it. Take the opioid crisis, for example. People are prescribed opioids for their pain, which goes into the controlled substances argument of government, but it's not just prescribed. Those that are prescribed that can take it. It's physically in the hands of consumers. It can be abused not just by the person, but those who have access to it, friends, family, etc. It's more likely for a person to abuse their friends or their family members antidepressants, or it's more unlikely for them to abuse antidepressants or antipsychotics because they don't provide a high. The side effects like acne, body pain, and weight gain make it less likely for people who like to abuse it, who don't need to take it. The side effects of weed are not usually physical, which Go might say is a good thing, but the side effects can manifest cardiovascularly in your lungs because of the smoke, in other side effect mental conditions like psychosis. Therefore, we have more protections and more deterrence against abuse on the pharmaceutical side. Next is that they say that it lowers a person's threshold for violence. We already mentioned why this doesn't cause violent behavior scientifically. Additionally, there are other things in society that do expose you to violence and make you more likely to act upon them. Take physical violence. Martial arts are things that you learn, and in regular practice, you would need to kick, punch, and throw people. Why don't we ban that as well when that makes you more capable of hurting others than playing a game? Okay, take raising your voice, which government sees as a big issue. Then we should ban debating then, because it trains you to look for holes in arguments and basically shout at your computer screen to like counter people. When you buy a game, you see the label on the front cover with a rating. When you see this in Steam, Epic Game Store, in the front of the card, in front of the game that you are buying, there is also a content warning that comes with the game. When you choose to partake in these games, you are willingly accepting the risks and consequences of what you choose for yourself. We understand that parents will give into the whims of their children and buy them games that are more mature for their age group because the kids are like, but this is the most popular one, I want to buy it. We say that this is not our problem, as it is the parents' prerogative to give these to their children. There's already warning labels in place, but if they choose to do that, then that is on them and that is not the job of the government. Lastly is that if this policy was implemented, then video games are not the priority. If we ban this, why not ban this instead? Why not ban movies instead? Movies in general have a wider scope of audience, not just limited to players. Families worldwide have global access to theaters. Promotional ads and trailers are widely available. The allure of movies themselves is about capturing news stories and visuals on a large screen, whereas when you hear about games, it primarily focuses on the gamer mindset, which not everyone has. Not everyone has the incentive to play games. We would agree that movies advertise worldwide with more emphasis on graphic violence to draw in as many watchers as possible. So, for example, Kill Bill, John Wick, zombie movies, wars and conflict zones, cannibalism. Movies are a more widespread and urgent concern then. So if the government doesn't ban movies, then they already lost by being soft in today's debate. They said that corporations are not going to pay you as much. Well, this is irrelevant and not where the debate largely revolves around. Why? Simple. The poorest sector of society can't even enter these parts of society. There's little mobility by the government to even make them competitive, which shows that we need more support systems rather than just blindly increasing minimum wage. If you say they don't hire competitive individuals, then they are free to do so. Their point on exploitation is moot. I would suggest exploitation happens regardless of pay, and this is a non-issue. And they say that we need more than just the bare minimum. It's interesting that they want to do this, but increasing the bare minimum is still the bare minimum. They don't provide the tipping point analysis of better quality of life. There is a public problem solution mismatch with what the country needs and what the government does about it. And a parallel of this would be the traffic issue. The traffic issue isn't an issue of more roads, it's an issue of better public transport. Governments tend to think in the short-term benefits more often because it's better for optics, because it's better for in the short term, just make people feel like you're taking care of them. But this is a similar problem of what Gov is going to do in increasing minimum wage. They say that to raise wages, but think nothing about the prices of goods and the overall currency inflation. If people are going to have more money in their pocket, then that will be spent, which yes will help businesses in the very, very short term, but will be detrimental to currency valuation. With more money floating around in the economy, it will make it highly likely that the purchasing power of the currency will go down because there's a lot more money floating in the economy. Second is that it's going to be harmful in the long term. This is an unsustainable model because there is no assurance of poverty being curbed or eradicated, especially without fixing other factors in society, i.e. employment opportunities, attracting investors to fly to the country for tourism. At best, all it does is allow individuals to make immediate access to higher priced goods. This impacts to employees are likely going to get fired because their employers can no longer absorb the higher cost for the same amount of employees. This engages directly with Gov, saying that corporations will invest in these people. No, they're already looking for ways to cut costs. Which Gov has conceded to, that these companies want to cut costs. Those who have no skills are not the ones that are going to be hired. They're going to be the ones who are going to be cut. It's way easier for a company to cut costs by firing the people who still need training and who still need spending for, and pay those minimum wage workers who already come with skills. What we also want to do is give skills and vocational training. These minimum wage earners are not going to have resources to go to college, but we do want to uplift their situation. There are many jobs in society that are better than a minimum wage job but require vocational training. For example, welding, repair, and plumbing. This isn't going to clash with the job market problem of professionals. Getting them out of poverty means more productive economy that actually raises their spending power, and that's the band-aid solution that Gov is trying to push. We actually want to get these people out of poverty on the longer term and not just appease the calls of the poor for better welfare. We want to help them build their lives toward a more sustainable future while helping the country develop as a whole. Gov only leads inflation to skyrocket, leaving more people jobless and hungry. We at OP invest in our people's future and get them to jobs that are going to help them live and not just survive. A big part of their argument is just the fairness, so I will rebut that right now. They say it's going to be unfair and they want an even playing field. It's already unfair in status quo. Limb length, VO2 max, which is the capacity of your body to process oxygen, muscle density, lung capacity, they all exist within men and women, even when competing within their gender. There are some women who have a VO2 max that are much more than men, and that basically is already unfair that we have in status quo. Each athlete has their own different capacities, and how is that? Basically, this gives athletes a built-in advantage as well, as you say that trans athletes have. We subject trans athletes to the same scrutiny as we do conventional athletes. This means that we ensure that they don't take any drug enhancements or other modifications that put them in clear advantage over the others. So this mitigates the idea coming from side government that we encourage unfair competition and we make sure that the person's biological past is no longer an issue. Gov needs to prove why this is something that is fair in why this treatment is fair in status quo, but the quote-unquote unfairness of trans athletes aren't. Then they say women are going to be playing. We already told you that athletes' goal is to win. This is untrue that women are just going to stop playing because they're a trans athlete. The point of sports is self-improvement and working on yourself to get better. If someone is better than you, then you work harder towards reaching your goal, which is winning. It's inconsistent to the values of the sports community. What are the values? So it's usually inclusivity, diversity, and the celebration of human achievement. First, on inclusivity, among sports competitions, there's an increasing value for inclusivity. And for example, the Paralympics that encourages those with physical disabilities to still want to compete, to still make it accessible. There are leagues on the local level, national level, international level to accommodate for everyone and make sure that they're getting access to sports. And as it is a way not to only exercise, but to get self-fulfillment, which I was mentioning about in the drive to improve. you.